All right. Well, okay. We'll start with the domination then idea. But yeah. Okay. So there. All right. IS is now green. All right. So as everyone probably knows, that is where I'm generally grouping up, right? Behind that hill. Echo 5, Fox 5 kind of ish hill. I'm calling on the grid that's here, not the grid that's in the real game. Yep, all right. Yep. So reason for this is it's far enough in from it's about as far in from your own drop zones and as close to where the circle or the enemy will be without being in any kind of direct line of fire. The one thing I get occasionally frustrated about, and I'd prefer not to see, that I have seen on this map before, is this kind of business. Yes, that pathing. That pathing, bad. Reason being, the enemy sometimes has a sight line up here. Often you'll get douchey clanners that'll come up here. I've seen it recently with like AC2 night cheers on good players who want to separate from the group. Like if good players are in a group full of pugs, they know that a good IS team's going to push, and so they'll separate from the push, sit on the wings, and then just shoot like that from here. Theoretically, if we had sweepers, like if we had a 12-man and we knew we had enough players that cooperated, we could send sweepers around like that. And even if the sweepers didn't come up on anybody, they would still have value by going around the back like this, if you see what I'm talking about.
Yep.
All right, so the first lesson here is don't go that F4 path around and then complain about getting shot or getting LRM'd. There's nothing worse than people making bad tactical decisions and then complaining to the caller in the game about not being supported or yada yada. Like, you got yourself into that situation. The caller's also got 11 other people to worry about, as well as what the clanners are doing. All right, so grouping up here. First things first, if you've got any kind of advantage, you've probably seen me do this, but if you've got any kind of advantage on this map, and sitting here is a great idea. Like, I think the last time we played Grim Plexus with a number of you guys, I called us to just stop an AFK right here. A few reasons for that. One, understandably, clanners, even decent clan teams, really don't know how to push all that well. I mean, there's obvious clan units that are exceptions to this, but the vast majority of them do not know how to push well. So if you've got a 1 or 2 kill advantage and you just AFK there, the clanners often do stupid things, like basically doing half or 3/4 of the push for you, going up like this, like to the bottom of the hill like this. Sometimes a number of them will split off and want to try and PPC like this. General tactical sense from a clanner perspective, as far as I'm aware, is that they want to encircle you in a semicircle, basically. So it's much easier to shoot people from all different directions rather than organize a group to split off and fight in different directions correctly, if you know what I mean. If we had proper lance control and we got surrounded, theoretically you can go, Alpha Lance go that way, Bravo go that way, Charlie go that way, and we'll actually be able to split and take out clanners from 3 different directions. But most of the advantage is letting them push on you, and then you get to counter push and destroy them. The only negative thing that happened last time, I feel, is that people it felt like people fell back into skirmish mode and they started NASCARing around the hill, if you guys remember that. Don't want to do that. Want to go over the hill and close on them as soon as possible. You might get shot from some guys in the background. That's all well and good, but it's still a situation you'll come out winning. Any comments on that?
Negative.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. When you're in that Fox 5 position if they've got someone at Golf 4, someone at Golf 6, and someone at Echo 6, and they're trying to surround, by NASCARing around one way, I understand the mentality of that. But
Yeah,
the idea
I do
is
too.
if you push over the top and you control it, at that point, before you push up top, generally we know that they've split. So you're aware of where the firing lines are coming from. So when you push over the top, make sure you're not just like, if you push over the top from Fox 5 and go to Fox 6, don't just stare at the enemy at Echo 6 that we're going to take out and then complain that you're getting shot in the back at Golf 4. Keep that twist on. Don't give them clear back shots.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much entirely correct. The main advantage there or whatever is that once you take the top, you can see all around you, and if I'm up there with the rest of you guys, we're all on top, I can see all the potential options. It gives me options of where to call from that point as well. If we're all pushing around this side here, I can see far less of the battlefield, and I've got far less ability to call what's going on in different situations. Also, it's far more of an advantage if we have a solid group we can trust or can call by lances, especially if we have sweepers. Maps like this, big fan of having sweepers deal with PPCing tards and stuff like that hang out like where Fox 7 would where Fox 7 is on this map, if you know what I mean. Like, you get PPC tards down here. This is not against you that I'm putting Kintaros in. No, they're not Kintaros. Yeah, they are. They look like Kintaros. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so back to the main point. After we've already grouped up there, if it's wave 1, standard push will basically be as follows. Up the hill on Fox 7, run down like this to where you get to the low point and you get to the through pass, and then head like this. That's the basic set play I use. Now, when I get around that Fox 6 to Golf 7-ish point, that is when my head is on a swivel and I'm looking to see what the enemy does. There's a few different ways this can play out, and you've got to kind of have a counter strategy for all of them. One is, and you've all seen this, you've got AFK Dakar boats sitting back here ready for a push, right? Like they got some noobs that are against the walls in Hotel 7 or Hotel 6, but you got a wall of like Mad Cat Mark 2s and so forth on that back zone right there. Yes. Yeah. Two ways to deal with that. If you notice it early, you can run around there and even go around like that. Not a huge fan. You can go around like that. That can work. This is all dependent on how fast your lance and your team is. And the quickest way, generally, that you take least damage is to go straight down the middle, because it reduces the amount of time, but it also has a higher threat level. Because if people split off and they're hitting you from both different sides like that, you run into problems. But basically, that's my play. And going over that top Fox 5, Fox 6 area basically is to get a visual view of what we're coming up against. And theoretically, if we're rolling with like a lance of 6Rs, that gives the 6Rs some ability, drop airstrikes, fire Gauss, keep people's heads down. Whereas, if clanners see that we're all full SRM boats, they'll take pot shots, which will hurt. That's one strategy, right? Any questions on this?
No. I've found more LRMs sat back there with the Dakar closer to the hotel line. And on the corner of, say, Hotel 6, where there's that gap between the two bismuth structures.
Yeah.
That's true. Anyway.
That's true. And that the top side push is preferential for that, because you can sit low ground to some degree and get out of the direct line of fire, and it lets you close relatively quickly. Better teams, or as you've probably seen recently, if we delete the top option and we go to this option, these two options, taking either of these two options, if the enemy team has a caller, quite possibly what's going to happen is this business, right? Clanners are going to start. Yes, they turn into NASCAR. One of the occasional frustrations, I understand it, is how quickly we can react to when I see things, because as a caller, I see things happening and I know how to take advantage of them, but it's not just up to me, right? It's up to everyone else, and there's some level of frustration there, and that's not something like I'm directing at you guys, or that is just part and parcel of being a caller, right? Working with people in any situation. But for me, preferentially, I always would want to turn back into them. What I very much don't want to happen is, if this is assault, for them to rush our base and for us to rush their base. That's not really fun for most people. Most people don't like cap out games. I'm one of them. So I would want to cut in on them as soon as possible. And this is dependent on a few factors. And if you notice me not calling this, it'll be for a few reasons. One is if they got a number of snipers, supernovas, dyers, warhawks, stuff that is going. If I've got a lot of variance in the speed of their lance, and I feel we have less variance, then I'm actually going to almost continue the NASCAR and hit their guys at the back, because we're going to do it better than them. It's terrible bullshit, but occasionally NASCARs work, right? For those reasons. When you have slow-ass assaults, or you don't have good team cohesion, NASCAR is in our benefit if we have better team cohesion. This kind of thing happened recently. Resist the urge to break off and get pot shots like that. It might actually work out in our favor, but you're sacrificing yourself for it. Like they may see one or two people coming over, and they'll all break off, stop their NASCAR business, and just annihilate two of us, which may let us catch up and destroy their assaults at the back. But that's not really how we want to play the game, right? I understand the desire to do that, to be effective, to get damage on target, that kind of thing, especially if you're slower at the back and you feel like you're going to get overtaken. But yeah, probably communicate that to the drop caller. But in general, I don't think that is a good idea, breaking off, unless it's specifically called and we have a strategy to meet you there soon. All right. Questions?
Just like to add, if you guys are not noticing, you'll see a recurring theme here on different maps. The Fox 6 and the Hotel 7 Hill move over the top, control the top of the platform. The same thing applies to other maps like the Caldera in Sulphur, the top in HPG. It's much more preferable to take the top than it is to go all the way around. It gives you a more dominant firing positions, and it's far better, as Mr. Annie says, it gives the caller a lot more information.
Yep, and it generally, or if not always, reduces the time it takes for you to get within brawl range. Like HPG, that's especially true. You take the top, doesn't matter which direction the enemy's going, you see the direction they're going, and you can go straight for it and reduce brawl range real quick. So yeah, if you're looking for a basic recipe, if any of you guys are considering getting into calling, the first part of any kind of calling strategy is identifying where that point is. Where is the best group up point? Some of this, just due to the nature of the maps, there's just absolutely no question really. Like the best forward point on Portico is on the ice between the gates, and the best second wave regroup point is about 1.5 grid references back from that. That's always been true and will remain true, because that's the only options you have on that map. Other maps you have different options, and this map you do have different options. If you're doing a standard skirmish these days, a meetup point can actually be around here, not super safe, and then you push to a second point around here, which gives you the opportunity to make a choice. The other thing about setting meetup points is pretty much all of the meetup points are not just the furthest place that you can get without getting shot. They're also the furthest place you can get before you're forced to make a tactical decision. The ice lake on Portico is a fine example. As soon as you get there, you've got a decision to make about which gate you go in. Do you split gates? Do you go both gates? In here on the Fox 5 thing, you've got decisions to make there also. In the Hotel 8 position here, if you're playing straight skirmish, you can decide which of these 3 paths you wish to take. So yeah, it's a meetup. It's the first meetup point, and it's also the point before which you have to make the first decision. So if you're calling, find out where that point is on the map, make sure everyone meets up on that point, have a strategy in mind on how you're going to go in, or have a scout that'll relay back to you information on where the enemies are, and then call a push based on that. And then the next piece of advice I would give is keep in mind, all plans can fall to shit, and often do. So you sometimes have to change your mind on a push halfway through. All right, and just to run you through the basic skirmish, that's what I've been doing recently. Super simple, going up that way. Other things you've seen me do on light lances, for example, is I'll get rid of some of these markers here. Taking like a full lance of lights or a full lance of assassins allows you to certainly rush in, and especially if they're staying right at the back. We've had a game quite a long time ago, included Giraffe even, that I was calling, that they had a whole lot of I think like Dakar Mad Cat 2s and other things at the back, and I called an assassin rush. We rushed out up here like this to here below the hill, and then I just completely put the brakes on. Completely put the brakes on and did nothing. And then I just sent a guy out one by one, peek, drop an airstrike, wait, peek, drop an airstrike. And if they're doing that shit that I know, for example, Roland has seen. Let's give me a douchebag clan mech. There we go. I've got my back against the wall. There we go. Just sending out a single assassin at a time, dropping airstrikes. And even our assassin wave, we don't go even in the numbers. If you see this kind of stuff and you see it early enough, like say you see it second wave because they've dropped lights or something that you know, or they've dropped heavies and you know they've got at least one lance and they're a team that does this kind of thing. Dropping lights and actually spending your time dropping airstrikes and attacking from strange angles with stealth armor, ER mechs, and changing positions between shots and irritating them. All you need to really do is get their armor down low enough that they will fold to a push, and they're in a very shit situation. Like maps like HBG, this is like an overwhelming, MRBC can't beat it bullshit strat. Maps like this, it's not so much. You get a number of airstrikes on those, you lose your wave, and they're all half damaged. They've got a decision to make. If you've still got 12 assaults left and they're in damaged Dakar mechs, like Mad Cat 2s, they're either going to eject, they're going to push in, which gives you a chance to reset, or they're going to sit there. And if they sit there and you push in and smash them, then you very quickly need to hit drop zones, and you can win on that bullshit. But the idea of completely slowing the game down when you see stuff like this, rather than get panicky and just push in on it, can actually be a benefit. All right, you think we're done on this map, or any questions?
I think we're done.
Sorry if I sound a bit. Cheers. Sorry if I sound like a robot.
No, you don't.
Are you saying you need a whiskey and cigar so you can sound more like Bender?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, have we done HPG? Yeah, I think
Yes,
we've done
have,
HPG.
yeah.
You sure about that? Last time we done Tourmaline.
Yeah, last
time.
Tourmaline and
HPG last week. Last week he did HPG and Tourmaline.
true. Hellbore. We've gone over Hellbore before. Not in this recent. Not all that recent, but I think everyone kind of gets the picture of what we're doing on Hellbore. I take it.
Depending on whether we are attacking or defending.
Yeah. I'd like to hit more of these skirmish maps because they're the ones that people have less idea about. There's more set plays for CW maps sitting around. All right, this one. It's got no fucking drop zones.
Yeah, but everybody pretty much knows where the drop zones are.
Yeah, horrible drop zone. Up there. Gonna make these a bit bigger. Drop zone, drop zone.
The only one I'd say here is the
drop zone,
domination
drop zone,
one.
drop zone. Yeah, I'm not fully up to date on domination. Last time I played domination on this map in CW, there was no path up in Fox 7, for example. Be more comfortable.
The circle is now in between Golf 6 and Fox 6, and
Yeah,
it barely touches the Citadel. And most of the drop zones for green are in a triangle around H4, Indigo 4 area. It's right back up there now.
Right. All right. Yeah, true. Without getting into the straight up drop tactics straight away, I'll just fill in a few points. Firstly, me big fan of the Echo 5 fire support area. And for Conquest especially, Echo 5 is a zone that can and should be held against, rather than doing I'm not a huge fan of the runaround. The, take super light 145 ECM mechs running around and injuring points. Less of a fan of that than I am controlling 3 and holding them. Simply because of how close they are to drop zones. And the fact that certain areas on this map, like these two, have really good lanes of fire over a whole lot of the rest of the map. And of course, to lesser degrees here and here, good lanes of fire over the map. Theoretically, you'd think around there probably does, depending on the size, but that's actually kind of a weak position. This is the way I see what zones are worth controlling here on this map. If we start on left-hand side, I am always... This is somewhat of a tricky map, and giving the enemy the least time possible to get coordinated, I feel is best. That's why setting a meet-up zone far back where you might not easily quickly be spotted, I feel is best. So let's say Hotel 6 is something I often do, and there's basically 2 or 3 main pushes I do. One you've probably seen, or I mean you've probably seen all of them, but may not have recognized. One is this business here. A lot of the strategies on my maps, the strategy is not just how to engage and then superior IS brawl. If we can get in with not much damage, we win, and that's as far as you need to think. Which is, obviously you run into some teams that play that way. my goal with where I push is dependent on where the enemy is, obviously, how quickly I can get in there with least fire, obviously, but also where the enemy drop points are at. Desyncing drop points wins games, clearly. Like, there's games you've seen where the score looked like really badly in our favor, and yet you heard me saying positive things on the mic because I knew we got double kills on certain lances, which is more important than getting I'd even say getting like a 10-12 or a 9-12 where you're getting 2 kills on another lance. If you then you've got tactical options to play conservative or to over smash that already weak drop point, yada yada. So that's one of my pushes there. Main reason is where people generally set up on the other side is they set up around there. You might get 1 or 2 up the top there causing problems, but most often you'll have the bulk of them down there. You can always have 1 or 2 sweepers to head up the top and try and deal with that business up there, but this lets you basically go down into the buildings, which obviously is IS territory. Point blank combat in buildings with Cyclopses is pure IS territory. This ends out in a few different ways. One, clanners retreat, or 3 different ways, I guess. One, clanners retreat back. You often see them around Delta 7 holding out, or Delta 5. Often you'll see the better players. Better players will sit up here on this hill, firing their Medved PPCs and their AFK DACA bullshit, and damage farming, and they can damage farm all they want. We're going to smash their team, win the game. Right, so from here, clanners will fight it out in Echo 7, Echo 6. They will defend back to Delta 7, or as you've possibly seen in the past, they will do this business. That ringing around business, I feel like if we're already over that water gap in Fox 6 and we're in their side of the building, if they start doing that and going out into the open, then when you see them start to cross the water, that's when, as a caller, you have to make a decision. Are we winning the fight? Are we ahead? If we're ahead, numbers-wise, we hit the drop zone. If we're ahead numbers-wise and it comes to a drop zone shootout, we will win that drop zone shootout. Like, even a somewhat banged-up Cyclops is going to murder a Eben that just fell out of a dropship and got a couple of alphas in the face. That point-blank drop zone fight, if you stay at the walls, come in at the correct time, that's A, in IS favor, and B, if we already have a numbers advantage by the time we're in Echo 7, that works out even better for us. They can run their pristine Mad Cats to Golf 7 and try and dacker us in the back if they want. Resist the urge to chase after them if you're in the lead. That's my advice here. If you're not confident about being in the lead, you've got 2 choices. Well, depending on your loadout. If you've got a close range loadout, or like SRMs, you don't have a great deal of choices. Chase, cut them off. Cutting them off, generally better. If you've got a DACA loadout, you can simply just hunker down behind the buildings in Echo 6, and it kind of works a similar way, as their reinforcements will come in dribs and drabs from their drop points. And if they try and engage on our drop points, then hopefully the people who are dropping in those mechs who've died first wave, they're dropping in things that can brawl at close range. And we're IS, so hopefully we'll put up a better fight than they will, drop zone dropping. And this works in the way that if they're running here, over this side, wait, I'll clear some things off. It's a kind of a inverse situation going on here. If they run over there and they're starting to cause issues from here, they're causing issues because they've got DACA, they've got PPCs, they've got heavy lasers, they've got stuff that can reach that 2 grid zone thing and do damage and win trades. If they have those kind of armaments, then sitting point blank at a dropship is not where they want to be when you're dropping your second Cyclops or you're dropping your roughneck, right? If they're effective at range in G6 after they've run, then they're not effective over in India 7 when they're trying to camp dropships. You see what I'm saying? Clans are never effective in both situations, really. Ton for ton. All right, so that was a whole lot of information. Anyone got any questions?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I think if we start on the left-hand side, practically works the same way. We should be pushing through the stone garden to the Golf 6 area and see what the enemy is doing. Reach between the buildings, possibly as far back as Hotel 6. And yeah.
Yep, that's one of my 3 options. Obviously, I've done this thing before, right? But that's super sketchy. If they bring a lot of lerms and you have no ECM and they get a lock after you leave that Fox 8 area, that can get nasty. But it also can work relatively well. Going through here and going straight for that dropship can work relatively well, although that's one thing that allows them to have the high grounded fire down on you. And that'll often turn up into a rushing back at this area here. Doesn't work all that well. What Roland was saying also is completely a fine option for heavy assaults. Going through there, obviously you may have to split in 2 ways, but they're also split in 2 ways. There's advantages and disadvantages to this. This requires more more coherence, because people may have to split off and engage individual targets. Especially there'll be 1 or 2 that have to go up that way, which you've often heard me call individual people out to take care of it, and then everyone else kind of does this thing. So it requires a little bit more. Also, medium and assassin waves. Medium and assassin waves, my favorite thing right now is this. Smashing their top drop zone. You've seen me do this before, right? I'm going to take that as a yes.
Yes.
Generally, I have a group up point roughly around there. Try not to get spotted. If you're at assassin speed, you can get up the top there before they generally have any kind of an effective defense. And there's definitely been games that I have called with a lot of you guys in it where it's been a very even game until we pushed an assassin rush across the top there and absolutely annihilated them. My point of view is that's fantastic area. These little buildings produce so many little fire holes. You can fire around either side of any of these buildings. You can, with a single jump jet, you've got enough power to jump jet over the height of the building and shoot. You can scare mechs so they jump off into that little tunnel thing and they basically should be left down there. There are so many ways assassins can take over this terrain up the top there. That's one of my back pocket, it's a difficult game, pull it out kind of cards. Lastly, on Conquest, as Necro said, it's changed. I'm not completely up with it. I do like having 1 or 2 ER mechs sitting up in that Echo 5 upper city, because it can fire all the way down to Fox 7 and support people who are going in to push, or it can keep enemy assaults engaged. And as you probably noticed, that's been a thing I've been doing, like on Rubelite, right? I run a few Cyclopses purely just to keep the enemy's eyes focused on us and wasting their time. And often the enemy have pushed and wrecked our Cyclopses, and it's generally me in a Sleipnir. But I think the trade-off is still a positive one when they're wasting the time of more mechs to try and dislodge and fight Cyclopses, while we are getting away with having more fast movers and missile mechs on the ground doing work. All right.
Quick question.
Yep.
Are we going to stay with the ER large lasers, or because of the nerf or whatever you want to call it, the heat, nerf are we going to be changing that over?
I have no idea. I have not even fired an ER since the patch.
We are looking at some different ideas for the long-range maps, but Alpine's always going to be one of those ones. We're looking at different strategies for polar, and some of that may actually translate into a different way of attacking Boreal Vault as well.
All right. Any other comments or suggestions?
No.
No, but it's good to run through this stuff.
Yeah.
Appreciate
So,
it.
With the advent of the assassin rushes that we're doing now, and sometimes we're picking them out at second or third wave, will we be looking at going towards like double Cyclops, double assassin drop decks a little bit more often, or?
I don't know is the honest answer. I'm wary of doing it. Probably worth trying, but yeah, honestly, can't give you a definitive answer. I don't know. I'll call. Hang on, we've got 8 people now. Would we like to do some CW now?
I would.